We want to look at an area called social work values and ethics. In short, we want to understand some of the values and ethics that guide the profession of social work and which social workers are required to observe and adhere to at all times. The discussion will be divided into two areas. The first part, we shall look at the values. The second part, we shall look at the ethics. In other words, what are the values that guide the profession of social work? What are the ethical issues that social workers are required to observe and uphold in the course of discharging their mandate? So I want to welcome you to our discussion on social work values and ethics. We begin by understanding of the two concepts, that is values as well as ethics. Values refer to social agreements about what is considered good and bad, right and wrong, desirable and undesirable in any given social setting. With regard to social work, we want to understand values as what social workers aspire to be or what they aspire to inculcate in their work, and ethics as the set of standard practices that enable social workers to perform their jobs professionally. But we might also want to understand ethics further by stating that there are standards that are essential in the protection of the dignity and rights of others, while also protecting and preserving the image of the profession as well as professionals. Social work ethics are therefore guidelines that social workers must abide by or follow when acting in their professional capacity. That is, when they are working and discharging their duties as social workers. There are certain guidelines that guide what they do, how they do things, and where they do such tasks. So those are important introductory issues that I wanted to highlight as regards to what is meant by values and what is meant by ethics. I now want to turn our attention to the specific values that social workers are required to espouse in their practice. The first value is that of service. That of service. And this value entails that social workers use their expertise selflessly in cases where there are no financial goals. Service in social works entails assisting vulnerable individuals and communities in tackling social needs and social problems. Social workers are therefore expected to prioritize their services to their clients by utilizing their knowledge, skills, values, and abilities, and they must do so over their self-interest. Thus, empowering individuals, families, and communities remains the paramount goal of all social workers. Social workers are expected to elevate the needs of their communities above their own personal interests and use their skills and knowledge to enhance the well-being of others. In other words, the primary value of a social worker is service. You are there to help members of society who are in need of your professional expertise and experience. This has to be done whether monetary values are offered or not, and social workers are encouraged to ensure that they elevate service to humanity over and above their own personal and self-interest. So service to all remains the greatest motto of all social workers. Another important value that social workers that guide the profession of social work and for which social workers are required to be guided by is what we call social justice. And social justice refers to a fair and equitable division of resources, opportunities, and privileges in society. Therefore, social workers should promote access, equity, diversity, and participation in society. One of the core values is advocating for those who may not have a voice in society by confronting inequalities arising from poverty, unemployment, and discrimination. Social workers should therefore be at the forefront in advocating and promoting policies and programs as well as activities that bolster the awareness about oppression, sensitivity, as well as cultural diversity. Social workers also provide information, help, and other resources to people seeking equality, and they also educate people who may not directly experience discrimination about the struggles of others and who may not have the same level of privilege in our society. It's also a core value of social workers to create more equitable support systems and identify structural conditions that contribute to the disparities in the health and well-being of individuals and communities. Social workers, therefore, must stand for justice. They must stand for equality. They must stand for equity. They must stand for diversity. And they must stand for involvement of people in matters affecting them. This is an important value. They must stand for this, observe it, and practice it at all times because it remains one of the foremost core values of social work. The other important value of social work is that which relates to human dignity. Human dignity. And social workers must strive to treat each person with care and respect and recognize and embrace the fact that people have differences and people are diverse in so many areas. Social workers are required to treat each person with dignity and respect, and also to promote their clients' capacity and opportunity to address their own needs and improve their personal situations. This value is particularly important as social workers are increasingly encountering individuals from diverse backgrounds such as gender, culture, thinking, as well as behaviors. Social workers empower their clients to focus on their needs and dilemmas independently and effect meaningful changes in their communities. This value of social work also demands of social workers to seek to eliminate factors that threaten the dignity and worth of individuals. In short, human dignity remains an important value in social work. Everything that social workers do, the goal is to dignify humanity. The goal is to create an environment in which human beings feel that they are dignified, and it becomes the responsibility of social workers to work towards promoting human dignity. It's also the responsibility of social workers to ensure that they treat people with respect, they treat people with care, and they understand people in terms of their diversities and challenges. Such a recognition is important in enhancing human dignity. So, human dignity is also an important goal that, or an important value that must guide social workers. At all times, people must be treated as human beings. They have to be respected. Their privacy and other things have to be respected. That is what human dignity entails. There is also the value of human relationships, and social workers recognize that facilitating human relationships can be a useful vehicle for creating change as well as transformation. And social workers excel at engaging potential partners who can create, maintain, and enhance the well being of families, neighborhoods, as well as the entire communities. Social workers therefore collaborate with individuals as equals in the process of identifying, addressing their needs, and impacting changes in society. Social workers also try to forge strong bonds with the individuals and groups they work with. As they nurture these human relationships, they also develop better joint efforts in providing care and services for the good of larger population. Human relationships are essential in challenging social conditions such as poverty, conflicts, diseases, among others, that often compromise human suffering. When we talk of human relationships, what we basically mean here is that social workers or social work recognizes the fact that no one individual can address problems facing humanity, and therefore there is need for collaborating efforts. There is need for developing relationships between different players so that if a problem in society, say poverty, is to be developed, one, social work recognizes that no one agent can potentially resolve the entire problem of poverty. You need a proper understanding between vulnerable population, between different donors, between different change agents. And therefore, one of the most important guiding principles that underpin the practice of social work is for social workers to create, maintain, and enhance the well-being of people by engaging in partnerships, establishing fruitful human relationships. Combined effort from a united front yields better results than when one single individual pursues a given goal. So human relationships is a core value of social work. The other important value of social work, and which social workers hold dearly, is that one of competence. That one of competence. And competence requires that each social worker must practice within their scope of competence and avoid misrepresenting skills or experience to potential clients. Social workers must also constantly strive to expand their knowledge base and competence in order to make meaningful contributions to the profession and those they serve. Social workers also have a duty to contribute to the knowledge base of the profession by engaging in research and other scholarly activities. Social workers must also be committed to lifelong learning and professional development to enable them provide the highest quality services to their clients and community. They must also be committed to continuous education through personal study and research, attending seminars either through the web or physically, and conferences, and also pursuing additional licenses and degrees. In other words, straightforwardness in terms of skills, in terms of expertise, becomes an important value of social work. Only engage. Social workers are required to only engage on the tasks for which they are qualified in. They are not meant to masquerade by any standard, and they need to continuously remain competent by advancing in education, reading, and contributing to scholarly development of the profession, engaging in research, writing, attending seminars, and making skillful and candid contributions to debates about social work practice, or providing their expert opinion on issues affecting society which they think or they feel their training and qualifications is best suited to address. So competence is a core value. We now want to look at some of the ethical issues that social workers are required to observe in their practice. One of them is what we call informed consent. Informed consent means that social workers must engage clients with knowledge of what is to be done. They have to be adequately provided with information before they engage. And therefore, social workers should provide services to clients only in the context of a professional relationship based, when appropriate, on valid, informed consent. Social workers should use clear and understandable language to inform clients of the purpose of the services they render, the risks that are related to the services they would wish to render, the limits to the services they offer, the costs that they charge on their services, and if there are alternatives to their services that are available in the field. They must also observe clients' rights to participate or not participate, and also the time frame that are covered by the consent. All this becomes important. Social workers should also take steps to ensure clients' comprehension through provision of a qualified interpreter or a translator in cases where clients are not literate or does not understand the primary language. Social workers who use technology to provide social work services should also obtain informed consent from the individuals using these services prior to initiating these services. They must also take time to establish whether clients understand the technology and also explain to the clients the purpose for the use of such technology and if there are limitations of such technology. That picture has to be quite clear to the client. Lastly, social workers should provide information about the nature and extent of services and about the extent of client rights to refuse services in cases where clients are receiving services involuntarily. In other words, informed consent is make the client aware of what providing in all its facets. This is a cardinal ethical consideration that social workers must observe and adhere to. The other ethical concern is confidentiality and privacy. So social workers should respect clients' rights to privacy and should not solicit private information from or about clients except for compelling professional reasons. Social workers should also review with the clients circumstances where confidential information may be requested and where disclosure of confidential information may be legally required. It's also a requirement that social workers protect the confidentiality of all information obtained in the course of professional service, except for professional compelling reasons. However, social workers may disclose confidential information when appropriate, but with a valid consent from a client or a person legally authorized to consent on behalf of a client. Social workers should not discuss confidential information in public or semi-public areas, such as the hallways, waiting rooms, elevators, restaurants, or through electronic devices, where issues and privacy of the client is not guaranteed. So any other setting that is likely to render private information go public must at all times not be used and therefore should be discarded. So confidentiality and privacy is also a cardinal information. In fact, at all times, social workers are not meant to reveal their issues or information provided by the client to a third party unless it is professionally compelling to do so. The other and last ethical issue for a purpose for social workers and social work generally is what we call integrity. Integrity. And integrity implies that social workers must conduct themselves honestly and reliably. Social workers must always keep their code of ethics in mind and ensure that their actions are consistent with the profession's mission, values, as well as principles. Social workers must also maintain integrity as members of both the profession as a whole and the organizations they belong to. Now, to facilitate these relationships and empower others to improve their lives, social workers must act in a way that does not endanger the trust that they have. By behaving honestly and demonstrating personal integrity, social workers can promote the organizations with which they are affiliated, while also creating the most value for the populations they serve. Integrity is key. Integrity is key. Serving people with honesty, being reliable, and being true to the calling of a given profession, adhering to the rules and regulations is a key ethical issue or concern that social workers must adhere to. Thank you so much for listening to me. That is the end of our discussion.